there, everybody, and welcome to episode 18 of my team career mode. This round, we head over to Suzuka for the Japanese Grand Prix and one of the cooler circuits on the calendar. Last round, though, at Singapore, unfortunately, not much for us really happened, but Charles Leclerc claimed the Drivers' Championship, so well done to him. And heading on to the new round, we'll be fitting some fresh power unit components as we edge closer to the end of the year. We want to try and get the maximum amount of performance that we can out of the engine. And maximum performance is exactly what we need, because we need a lot of points in these last few races to finish in 8th. As you could quickly briefly see there, R&D development has been quite good, but we need to be very careful of next year's regulations, and we need to try and save some of our resource points into saving and salvaging these parts for next year so that they can be adapted in time. And it's kind of at the point in the season where we can't really buy meaningful upgrades before it ends anyway, so most of our points will be going towards salvaging those parts and adapting them for the next season. As we prepare now for qualifying on a track which, to be honest, I'm not particularly strong on, but again, we are going to be pushing as hard as we possibly can, knowing that points are incredibly vital for our chance of getting on top of AlphaTauri in that Constructors' Championship and staring down the barrel of a $6, $7, $8 million bonus, which would set us up really nicely for next season. If we don't get the bonus, well, things don't look all that good as we get towards the latter portion now of our second flying lap and our final flying lap of Q1. Unfortunately, we do run a little bit wide there at the spoon curve through turn 14, and on the big run down now to 130R, we do lose quite a bit of time. We'll see though if perhaps we can salvage some of that. We need to find at least 3/10 here through the final couple of corners. We find a little bit through the chicane and through the final corner leading on to the start-finish line, but it's not quite enough, and that will see us qualify in P19 for the race.
We come to you live today from the Mie Prefecture in the south of Japan's Honshu Island for a race that has seen many title deciders over the years. Some simple, some controversial, but all contributing to a legacy that makes the Japanese Grand Prix an indispensable stop in any Formula One season. 18 corners make up a lap of the incredible figure-of-8 Suzuka circuit, with 10 to the right and 8 to the left, for a distance of 3.6 miles. Average lap speeds around here are fairly quick. If it stays dry, then expect somewhere in the region of 136 miles per hour. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks like for today's race. A fantastic effort from Charles Leclerc yesterday, and it's put him on pole. And Max Verstappen lines up alongside. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Fernando Alonso, Bottas, Esteban Ocon, and Mick Schumacher. Russell, Hamilton, they'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty. Norris and Daniel Ricciardo, they've taken a grid penalty. Mia, Albon, Kevin Magnussen and Vettel. Latifi, Tsunoda, they'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty. Carlos Sainz and Sergio Perez. Stroll, Aitken, Gasly and Guan Yu Zhou. It's almost time for those 5 red lights to go out then. Let's see who can prevail today. Anthony Davidson is here once again for today's Grand Prix. Let's have a chat about McLaren. What do you make of their performance so far this season?
Well, the atmosphere within that team seems very positive at the moment. Everyone seems like they're in great spirits and having a lot of fun doing what they do, and that's definitely contributed to the performances we've seen.
Here we are then on the grid for the Japanese Grand Prix, and as you could see in the pre-race graphic, so many drivers have penalties heading into this race, and we have been elevated into position 11, so right on the brink of points. All it takes now is a really good start and hopefully a couple of DNFs up ahead, and we can really find a serious chunk of points in this race. Again though, we're not particularly strong and our race pace isn't great, so it's easier said than done. The other factor to consider, and we'll probably talk about it throughout the race, is that this is on the newest patch of the game where the handling model has actually been changed quite a bit. More understeer, the car overall is slower, the tire temps are really sensitive now as well, so we had to try and dial that in during practice, which was also quite tricky. So that's all going to play a factor in this race. We're not going to be as comfortable as we otherwise would have been. But we need to try and put those distractions behind us now as we wait for the lights to come on. We need points in this race, and it's 5 red lights, and away we go. Hopefully our initial launch isn't too bad, but unfortunately a lot of wheel spin. Not quite as clean as we've seen throughout the year, and we're getting swamped off the start. Albon passes Vettel as well, and we're probably lucky that Magnussen didn't get us around the outside. We aggress onto Vettel to try and get him back down the inside through the first couple of corners, but he makes his way through, and through the S-curves it's almost impossible to get an overtake done unless someone heads running too wide, but AI not that silly here on the opening lap. So we slot into position 13, and as often is the case, we know we need to find positions as early on as we possibly can in the hopes that we can then hold the AI behind us in a train later on into the race. We're keeping it nice and clean though so far, and actually reserving quite a bit of overtake that I know we can use later on in the race as the AI check up heading in to the hairpin. On the exit of turn 11 though, we can't really get a good enough run here on to Vettel. Perhaps we could have a look heading in to 13, but we are just a little bit too far behind at the moment. Just looking to get a nice clean run all the way down now to 130R, and that time it was a little bit cleaner than what we were able to achieve in qualifying. A move through 130R is very dangerous, so we don't do it there, but we might be able to line up Vettel now down the inside. We get aggressive late under brakes down into second gear, and we get the move done. So really happy being able to achieve that. As Max Verstappen set to 133 on the opening lap, and I'm sure that time is obviously going to get a lot quicker as the race goes on. Our attention though onto the rear of Ricciardo, and he's now under threat heading into the chicane, and we get him down the inside as well. Not quite as clean under brakes, but still we managed to make the move. And now we're up into P11, and I apologize for my voice. I am trying really hard not to cough. I do not feel great. My voice is suffering as a consequence, but we will move on. Now trying to hunt down Albon for a top 10 finish, and the Williams is slower than us on the performance index, so I'm assuming we'll be able to find up this ground quite quickly, assuming again we keep it clean and tidy. Keep the tire temperatures in check. Don't want them going up around about 98, 99 degrees or higher, otherwise then they start to feel like ice. At that moment we're keeping them in that window quite nicely, which is good to see. Ricciardo though is looking pacey behind, so we don't want to be overly defensive, but at the same time we can't forfeit that track position, so we're looking to try and find a nice balance at the moment, as it looks like the Haas up ahead of Schumacher is holding up this train a little bit, which is good for us. And Albon now actually under threat. He did not come out well from the exit of that hairpin. We're going to look down the inside now. Managed to get the move done into 13. Very aggressive. We don't leave him much room on the outside, but good respectful racing from the two of us. Now looking to get a clean run down to 130R in the hopes that we can catch Norris and Schumacher, who continue to battle now onto lap 4 side by side. And we've gained a lot of time on this pair, and we're looking to try and find an opening. Do we go 3 wide through the kink? No, we do back out. That could have ended very, very poorly, but we need to try and get these moves done as quickly as possible, because Albon now re-aggressing from behind, and we can't afford to let him get through. So we use more overtake, we get aggressive, and now Schumacher potentially under threat here. We think about a move down the inside, but so does he, so we get blocked out. Albon, however, does commit and does find some room down the inside. We rub wheels a little bit, but we get superior traction having the racing line on the exit. So it's getting a little bit messy here on lap number 4, and the pack ahead of us 3 and Schumacher and Norris and myself are running away now, but critical points still to be found here as we look around the outside of Schumacher at the chicane. So this has been a really good overtaking spot for us in the race thus far, and with DRS and overtake we should be able to get that move done. We do, and on to lap 12 now. The front runners are beginning to pit, and our pit window opens as well. So we want a really good, clean in-lap here to ensure that we don't lose too much of that vital track position as Verstappen exits the pits with fresh hards. And through the S-curves, he may well hold us up here, which is really not good for us at all. As you can see, he checks us up. Not his fault, though, of course. On those fresh tyres, the hards take a while to get in towards the zone. They're still going to be cold as well. But still disappointing and frustrating for us. Ricciardo now under third behind. We can't afford to run side by side with him, otherwise we're going to lose even more time. So it's all compounding here. As Verstappen now eventually does find a little bit of a gap, so that's good for us. Ultimately, we're not fighting him whatsoever. He'll be probably fighting for a race win. We do get a little bit deep, though, into the hairpin, and Ricciardo sees that as an opportunity to have a look down the inside. Fortunately for us, again, our traction is a little bit better. And that is actually one big change in the handling model that I didn't mention before, is traction now is a lot different. It's certainly easier. And there's nowhere near as much wheel spin in higher gears like 4th and 5th that there perhaps was previously. And that took a lot of time actually to find the confidence to be more aggressive on the throttle. But that's something, again, we'll improve upon as the races go by. Honing in though here on our in-lap. Outside of being held up a little bit there from Verstappen, a little bit deep into the hairpin, I mean, it wasn't awful. And we'll be hoping that our team achieves a nice clean pit stop here so that we remain in front of this big bunch of cars. All it takes is one mistake and we lose about 3 positions here, so that would not be ideal at all. So fingers crossed the team can serve us a good pit stop. It's been a bit up and down as of recent, so we'll see what they produce this time. Again, onto that hard compound of tyres, the one stop the fastest strategy. And there we go, a nice clean 2.9 second pit stop from the team. And as we exit the pits, those tyres stone cold, and we'll be going to get them up to temperature as quickly as possible. It looks like the cars behind have been held up a little bit. I don't know if they've been put in traffic, perhaps? I'm not too sure. Anyway, moving forward to lap 16, and the gap to Ocon, 15 seconds. So we're not going to catch him in this race, and 9th position, probably the best we can achieve at the moment. But Sainz in the Ferrari, the fastest car on the grid, is close behind. And keeping him behind for the next 10 laps is going to be very, very, very tricky. So we'll see what we can achieve. But there's a yellow flag, and Sainz actually drops back. I think Sainz has had a mechanical fault in this race. A disaster for him. We get a little bit distracted and run wide through the first corner, but nonetheless, probably waiting for a yellow flag. And there we go. Magnussen actually out as well. So both cars retiring on the same straight, on the same lap, in the same position. So, yeah, really strange that we get confirmation that Sainz is out of the session as well. But it does alleviate a little bit of that pressure that we did have on us. So, we go to the restart now on lap 19. And I made a bit of a mistake, so please ignore. That actually didn't happen. Yeah, we are in position 9 on lap 19. Bit cleaner through the chicane this time, as the tyre temps were just dropping off dramatically. That's the big change in this handling model. You need to run lower tyre pressures, otherwise your tyres get baked, and that means that under the safety car, you really, really find it tricky to keep those temperatures up, much like real life, I guess. So, nonetheless, we do retain position in 9th, and this is probably where we can ultimately hope to finish at best, unless there's a couple of DNFs up in front, or maybe another safety car or something like that, because Ocon, as we saw before, had a massive gap. He's way faster than us, and he's going to run away unless we get an overtake done soon. And that does not look likely. It's almost already outside of that 1 second gap, and we have to wait a little bit for DRS to come back online. Most of our focus now for the race is going to be behind, as Ricciardo just absolutely sends it down our inside. I don't know what that was all about. Schumacher gets by as well. Now us into P11, and that is really frustrating. I get aggressive through the hairpin again to try and get a position back, but that doesn't work out. Now we are in position 11. I was a little bit frustrated at the way in which Ricciardo got that move done. But nonetheless, we can't dwindle on it now. We do get aggressive once more on Schumacher and get that one stuck. So we're into P10. Meaning we might be able to sneak at least 1 point in this race. And as we move on to the final lap, Schumacher has been kept behind now over 6 seconds. Perez made a late run, but he'll stay behind half a second. Ricciardo, he gapped us up in front. And I'll be having a word to him after this race. The Aussies not looking out for each other on that occasion. But anyway, the race concludes. We'll get a singular point in this race, but we really need more going forward. Oh well, it could have been worse. And we'll keep our head up high.
Not just victory today then, but the championship as well. What a spectacular season they've had. Congratulations to the whole team. And talk to me, what do you think it was that sealed the win for them?
I think that smart time management on track and very smooth driving definitely assisted in their victory today. That combination meant they got the absolute maximum out of their tyres at all times.
Here come our winners now, a thrilling race and a tremendous effort by Ferrari. Their history is well known, so it's no surprise to fans the world over to see them come out on top once again. Let's focus on the driver of the day, Anthony Davidson. Who do you pick?
Jack Aitken gets my vote today.
So then, Ferrari have now moved out of sight and out of reach. It's another triumph for the Italian team as they claim the World Constructors' Championship. Meanwhile, good work from Aston Martin this weekend, who pushed themselves further up the order. It's been an absolutely wild weekend of Formula One action. I can't wait to see what's next.